Kimberly-Clark is the parent company of Kleenex, a global brand that manufactures paper facial tissues since the 1920s. In August of 2023, Kimberly-Clark announced a shock exit of Kleenex from the Canadian market after about a century. The World War started after the assassination of Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand, with export trade impacted around the world and Europe greatly affected. European countries began to prioritize linen for defense purposes. Linen was diverted to making aircraft fabric covering to provide light airproof skin, reduce airplane drags, and protection of key structures in the aircrafts. After the war, Austrian Ernst Mahler, who was originally thought to be a German, was taking a tour through paper and pulp mill factories in Germany when he came across a substitute product to the most sought-after commodity, cotton. This substitute product was creped cellulose wadding, which was made from processed wood pulp. When World War I led to the shortage of cotton supply, Ernst Mahler found his way to Washington, D.C. Ernst was able to convince the U.S. government that cellu cotton is an ideal substitute for surgical cotton dressing for treating wounds during war, and it can also be used as a filter in gas masks. This pitch solidified Kimberly-Clark's entry to the cotton market. Life began to get to normal after World War I. People wanted to look good again. Kimberly-Clark began to explore a new use for cellu cotton. He realized cosmetic use by women was becoming prominent. Kimberly-Clark developed a new version of cellu cotton, a thin, soft tissue, and called it Kleenex, from the word clean. Kimberly-Clark positioned Kleenex as a disposable tissue for removing makeup. In 1927, resources were poured into adverts, and actresses in Hollywood were used in these adverts, using Kleenex to clean makeups from their faces. Hoping for success in the new market position of Kleenex, Kimberly-Clark conducted a survey 3 years later to see how the market was using Kleenex. But what they realized was shocking. Majority of the survey respondents used Kleenex for blowing their noses. This use of the soft tissue, which was originally positioned for makeup removal, has organically evolved into a new use by the audience. With this new use, Kimberly-Clark drew up a new position for Kleenex, disposable handkerchiefs, and coined the slogan that gave cloth handkerchief a big blow in the personal care market: "Don't put a cold in your pocket." Kleenex grew into a global brand and was referred to as the world-famous tissue. In August 2023, Kimberly-Clark, the parent company, announced the exit of Kleenex from Canada. According to Kimberly-Clark, the company has been operating in a highly constrained supply environment, forcing them to cease their Kleenex consumer line in Canada. Canada's market is becoming increasingly difficult for consumer goods brands that are not leaders in their categories. Kleenex pioneered this commodity-like category and was a generic name for facial tissue to many consumers, but it lost its #1 market share in Canada. The announcement of the exit of Kleenex from Canada came 5 years after the exit of another commodity-like product in 2017, Skippy Peanut Butter. But why are these brands exiting the country? Canada has a population 10 times less than the United States, and the country faces insufficient competition in the grocery sector. Minimum differentiation exists between commodity-like products, making consumers insensitive to which brands they use, and focus more on price, making it hard for brands that are not in the first place to compete. What is the cause of this stiff competition? Private label products are on the rise in Canada's big grocers like Loblaws President's Choice. This rise in private label has changed retailing in Canada. Store brands originally operated on low-quality, low-price model, but that has been modified to quality equivalent store brands, which has seen a huge growth. A brand that is not on the #1 spot is already at a significant disadvantage, especially in Canada, where the supermarket concentration level of brands is high when dealing with big retailers. The Private Label Manufacturers Association of Canada relies on the findings of its study that consumers view store brands and manufacturer brands as equivalent in terms of quality and other attributes. But the idea behind this private label move is clear. Retailers get a higher profit margin with private labels. Retailers initiate contracts and prioritize products from their own manufacturers over national brands like Kleenex, and they get lower wholesale price. Another motivation behind private label is to promote retailer loyalty. Customers who like any of these big retailer parent companies like President Choice, Selection, or Compliment will patronize their grocery subsidiaries. Almost all Canadian households have at least a private label product in their pantry. Once the store brand is launched, the retailer finds a way to remove manufacturer brand from their listing, especially the brands that are weak or not nationally advertised. This kind of environment becomes difficult for smaller national brands. Inflation and costs may also pressure consumers to seek these low-priced private labels. Private labels have grown substantially in the last 10 years in North America, especially in the commodity-like categories. In 2021, the growth rate of private labels in Canada was significantly higher than the growth rate for national brands. The volume share of private labels in a select group of categories was close to a third of the market. Private label growths in recent years have been recorded in categories including frozen foods, baked desserts, processed meat, dessert, and condiments. Walmart is Kimberly-Clark's biggest retailer, with net sales in the personal care and consumer tissue segment in the last 3 years showing a decline. Again, the cost associated with securing retail listings with these big grocers is significant, making it difficult for small brands in a commodity-like category to make money. To avoid being preyed upon by the retailer, the manufacturer brand must be powerful, that is, occupying the top spot of national brands like Kroger's Curtis, which has a high level of advertising support and is a title sponsor of the Canadian Women Curling Championship. Their increased visibility and consumption make big retailers ensure the brand is always available on the shelf. In turn, the retailer may ask for significant concessions from a less powerful brand like Kleenex, since their ability to move off the shelf is far less than the market number one. This Curtis brand commands a tissue market share of about 35% in Canada, while Kimberly-Clark's Kleenex holds less than half of that, at 16%. This means that Kleenex is a weaker national brand and is at the most risk of being pushed out by the big-time retailers. The exit of Kleenex facial tissue, like other commodity-like products, is not healthy for Canadian consumer market, especially as the country is faced with global inflation. This gives too much power to private label brands, which can cause price fixing. Canada's top 3 supermarket chain controls 60% of the market, compared to the United States that sits at 37.5%, while Canada's top 5 supermarket chain control close to 80% of the market, compared to the US that sits at 47%. The continuous rise of private labels among big retailers, which has led to the exit of the one-time world most popular facial tissue from Canada, is a continuous threat to smaller manufacturers. The Consumer Bureau of Canada must be strengthened by the government to investigate and prosecute these retailers' collusive behavior. Let's do business.